In this video, I'll take you through the process of implementing a secure login system using JWT, right, on Android mobile application, from the backend token generation to the token management on Android part using Retrofit. But before I take you through the source code, let me quickly take you through the demo application. For the demo application, I've implemented this with Kotlin end-to-end. For the backend, I'm using Ktor framework, and for the front end, I'm using Jetpack Compose and Kotlin. So for the backend, as you can see from this log, it has been deployed to a remote server, which is just a Linux server that I'm using, right? You can see that we have it deployed on port 8080 and currently running on port 8080. So for we to demonstrate this, let's create a new user. To create a new user, let's just quickly have this JWT phone number, the password 12345, just to keep it simple. Confirm password. Right, if you view this, you see that we have the same thing. Then we can register. Now when you register successfully, right, we should have this log on the back end. On the back end, we can see it was successful. Then it means we can simply log in that same user. The password was 12345. Let's use 26 and let's see what we get from the server side. Yes, invalid phone or password, right, which is 401, which is very correct. Then the password 125, this is the correct password. Now you see we got 200. Okay, it means we can log in successfully. Now on the mobile application, now you see that we've logged in successfully. So we simply have the name, phone number, and section ID. For we to get this, it's going to make another request to a different endpoint, which is auth.me, right? And that is on a secured layer. It means this endpoint is expecting your access token to uniquely identify that user, right? So for this, what we have here is just material tree design, right? You can change it to light or dark theme. So let's make request to authorize or to get information about the user. Now you see we have JWT, we have the phone number that we entered initially when we registered. Then we have this 4-digit random number that is generated anytime you click on this auth.me. Now on the server side, what we can see that it tried to get information auth.me because it's on a secure layer, but the token has already expired. So the system tried to refresh the token, which was successful. So we got 200, and the process of getting information about the user was, the attempt was tried again, which was successful. So if we click this, it was set to 10 seconds. Ideally, you want to have your access token to be between 5 to 15 minutes short-lived. Then for your refresh token, you want to have it for days, like 7 to 30 days, which is fine. But if we click this again, it's 10 seconds, click it immediately. Now you see, it's not asking us to refresh again. It's just getting the information. And from the mobile application, you can see that, excuse me, you can see that we're having different color there, different color that is being generated anytime we make attempt. But then if you just make the request within 10 seconds, this should not ask you to refresh your token. And that's what we're getting on the server side, right? Because it's between just 10 seconds. And when you check the section ID, you see you get new section ID anytime you make attempt. But then if this thing is up to like a minute, for demo purpose, I've set the refresh token to be just a minute, but ideally, like I said, is in this. So what is happening behind the scene? Let me simply use this simple diagram to explain that. So we have the client side, which is the mobile application, then the back end, which was built with Ktor and Kotlin, right? When you make requests to register, if the registration was successful, then you have your access token and your refresh token. This is the short-lived token that uniquely identify every user, and this is the long-lived token that lasts for days. So you use this access refresh token to get a fresh token, access token, whenever it gets expired, right? Therefore, login, the same process. And when you have your access token, when you're making requests to a secure backend, the backend is expecting you to pass in your access token. And this is more than a minute now. So if we come back to this, right, and we try to make this request, this should log out the user out. It should log out the user automatically. Can you see? Token expired, login required. So this system automatically to take you back to login. Now you are giving the user a very smooth experience, right? When the access token has expired, we automatically use Retrofit on the mobile application to retry and refresh the token without the user knowing what is going on behind the scene, right? And the last request we made here, it returned 401. and the system tried to refresh the token, but the refresh token too has already expired. So we'll go 403, and that was why the mobile application asks us to log in again for security reasons, so we can get fresh token all all together again and start all over again. So let me take you through the source code for the backend application. For the backend application, right, I've used different plugins. So let me take you through the libraries and the plugins I've used. The first thing I want to add here is the Authentication JWT. This is the plugin or library I'm using to generate our access token, our refresh token, right? So I'll add this. Automatically, this will add routing for us, right? Then I'm exchanging JSON between the client and the server. But this, we need to add content negotiation too. I don't know if it has been added automatically. Yes, it has been added automatically, right? Then we can see our log. I'm using this plugin called login for that, right? Then to manage exception too, I'm using status pages, right? I think that is all. Then I work with Postgres too, and of course we need expose, right? I have a video that explains everything about expose already. You can check the playlist for backend application in my YouTube. There's a video there that explains expose, so I'll just quickly add it here. And I have this here too, right? Then our application is ready. So I'll take you through the source code now because I've already built that. I'm not going to go through coding it line by line. I'll just take you through what we have on the back end. So let me get the source code for that. Of course, the backend is 100% a Ktor project, right? Built with Kotlin, right? And we've added our libraries. I told you all the libraries we've made use of. We'll go to this version catalog, right? You see all the libraries and their versions here. All right, so let's go straight to the source code since we have other video that explain Ktor application and other part of it. So for this, on getting to this place, I'll go straight to database, right? I have just two tables here, which this particular table is used for users, right? Then the second table is used to manage the user token, because every time you log in successfully, you create a new token, and you can actually invalidate all those tokens in case if they get expired, like revoking the token, logging out to the user, and the rest of them, right? Then for database factory, I'm using two different databases. You can switch in between in-memory database, which is H2, right? So when you initialize this, you can simply pass true. For the default here is true for in-memory database. But if you want to use Postgres, let's assume you have Postgres installed in your system just like me, then you can make use of Postgres, then set all the Postgres parameters to system environment, right? Then you use this iCarry to manage your connection pool to Postgres, right? Then table converter, this is just a data object that converts your row to data class, right? From the server side, from the server layer, from the service layer to your repository layer, right? Just to exchange information there. Then for the data transfer object, DTO, we have requests, we have a response. So when you make request for login, for example, you're expecting this from the user, which is the payload, and this has been annotated with serializable coming from Kotlin X serialization, right? Just to exchange record and convert it to JSON when the client make request. This, the same thing with registration. Registration, this is the payload for registration. Then you have response about name, phone, and that section ID, which is the 4-digit generated code. Then token response, you have access token and refresh token. Good. Next thing is the model. I will make mention of this. This is simply to just expose token, using expose to expose token, then to expose user information too. And this is the information that is passed between the service layer and the repository layer. Then for plugins, audio plugins have implemented validation to validate all requests coming from client. Serializable serialization, this is content negotiation, right? Don't forget we're exchanging JSON as the media type. Security, for security, right? I'll come back to this because this is more like the main one. Routing, I've bundled this to call API auth, right? Then you can see that to get this auth me, which is that endpoint that is secured, you can see that we've wrapped it into a Lambda expression. We will wrap it into a Lambda function that will first make sure that this endpoint is authenticated. So this will intercept it works more like a filter. It will intercept our request and make sure that the necessary token is intact and it has not expired. Then when you refresh your token, the same thing. Now you see that we're having two with two different names. This is to refresh to check access token, and this is to check refresh token to be sure that it is still valid. Then you saw that we're able to check our log making use of this. This is the plugin that just print out our log. Then I've used coin too for dependency injection. So instead of creating different instances of our services or repositories, right, it's better we just invoke it directly and make use of it. The exception, I have customized exceptions here, right? This is for validation, this is for authorization, this is for conflict, right? So if you come back to this place, you see I've defined everything. So just classes that extend runtime exception, right? So this is good. Repository, for repository, this handles connection to database, right? But we're having the implementation separated with an interface, right? So these are the implementation. There's a video that explains this expose. You can check my playlist on that backend application playlist. I have this there. So this is quite straightforward too, right? Then we have the service layer. The endpoint will connect to service layer. Then the service layer will then connect to the back end, to the repository to get information from the database, right? For utility, I have API app utility. This is to generate UUID for password, right? The way we can generate any number of unique ID here, right? Then this to fine tune your phone number because you're expecting die code and the phone number is saved from the user. Then we have our custom exception here. I've explained that. Date util, yeah, this is just a utility function that we use to create different instances for date and to get uh, to set the expiration date for our token, right? So for this, you want to add maybe in minutes, you want to add like 15 to 30 minutes, right? For your token, but for your access token, that has to be in days, right? So you want to add like maybe 15 days. Yeah, good. Then for password, because ideally in production, you don't want to save your, of course, you can't save your password plain, your user password plain, right? So you want to hash it, and this is the function I'm using. This is coming from a library, bcrypt. We use this function to hash. Then when you want to check, since the password is already hashed, you just compare, right? The library will be used to compare your plain password and your hash password, right? Good. Then for application, we just call all our extended function of application class, which are all the plugin, right? So this is a bit straightforward. So I want to take you back to the JWT service class, right? For authorization, you register, right? For registration, you check to be sure that the phone number does not exist. If it does not exist, you generate the ID, then you save to the DB here, right? When you save to the DB successfully, then you then generate access token and refresh token, then return this back to the user, refresh token, access token, then you return it back to the user, right? The same thing when you log in successfully, you want to check the phone number to be sure that you can get the user and it exists. Then from here, you want to compare your password. You have the password here, then you have the encrypted password coming or the hash password coming from the DB. Then you use this function that I show you initially to just match to be sure that yes, the password are the same. If not, you return invalid phone number or password. Then if everything is okay, then you just proceed to this place, generate your access token, refresh token, send back to the user. Auth is a secure layer. It's expecting you to pass in a valid access token. If not, that this will not go through, right? So if for you to get to this point, we're under service layer. It means the filter has already done its own part of the work to be sure that the access token is correct and it is valid, that you can get hotmail. But if the access token has expired, they will use this function to refresh it. The first thing you want to do is to revoke all existing token in your DB that belongs to this user, right? And that is why the first thing you want to do is to get the subject of your JWT to get your user. Then revoke everything, save back a new token, then return back to the calling client. This is good. Then go back, let's go straight to plugin security good. Now this is the filter I was talking about because it works just like filter. Yeah, you define authentication, right? You give this a name, JWT. You want to separate this logic from a refresh logic, and that's why we're having this here. and we also have this here. So the first thing you want to do is to validate your token. When you validate your token, if everything is valid, then you just go ahead, right? If not, you want to call this challenge. This challenge now will return back to the calling client that, okay, invalid or expired token. You remember when we got 401, right? Because the token has expired. This is fine. The same process here, right? It will first verify with this verifier, right? It's calling a class that we've created under JWT. It's calling a function that we've created under JWT service. I'll take you through that too, right? Then validate. This function will validate. We'll call the function to validate. We'll go through this function too. But in case if this is not correct, then it will return none. So immediately this particular function, this lambda function gets null, is going to return to the calling client with a corresponding error message here, which works very fine. So let's go to this our class here. JWT. Right now, look at the class here. We've already used a coin, so we can call this directly and get instance of our repository and application environment. So coming to this place, we are getting this issuer, audience, the realm, and security. This one, we're getting it from the system environment. Remember how to set your system environment, right? Securely, because you don't want to keep this secret key in your source code, right? You want to have it on your system environment, excuse me. Now you have this is coming from your application resource.application.yaml file, right? These are the information we are getting for this here, right? Because we need it. Then the next thing then is for you to look at this JWT verifier. Remember, we'll call this function to verify our JWT. Then you can create your access token here, create your refresh token here. For refresh token, can you see this? You want to get expiration in days. So ideally you want this to be 30 days, right? Then we'll have another function. You know, I told you that I have this as seconds just for us to demonstrate that mobile application. Then to create your token, right, you have to put audience. We are getting the audience from that application.yaml file with issuer. Then claim, you can add more claims here, but for this I'm just using the username, which is also the subject. Then here you use this function, call this function to set the expiration date or time. Then we are using this algorithm HMAC 256 to encrypt our JWT, right? So this is fine. Now to validate, the first thing we are doing is to be sure that the header has this bearer token, right? Which is this from the authorization header, I mean. Then for the next thing, you want to split and get your token. If not, anything that goes wrong here, just return none. The system or the plugin for JWT already knows how to handle this. Immediately you get no, they will go straight to challenge. This is what I'm talking about for security. Immediately you get no for this validate function, it will go straight to challenge. Call this lambda expression to respond back to the calling client, right? Good. Then we have let's go back to that class. Where's the class? Okay, this, right? You check this, then you check your DB to be sure that this token is the token that you've generated initially. If not, if anything is suspicious, then just revoke it, because it is possible for you to have a malicious user that has access to your token, right? So if you suspect that you've already revoke a token and that token is trying to make requests, what you need to do is just to log out everybody. So you just revoke all the tokens and force the user to log in again. So here you check, is token expired? If it has expired, then return no, right? Just to be sure that you are checking everything and be sure that the token has not been tampered with and you are making use of the right token, right? If everything goes well, then you have this, then just do this without returning no, and we are good. So we have some utility functions here to extract claim, to get valid audience that will set when generating the token, to check if the token has expired. All this, they are all good. So this is for the backend. The link to the repository is in the description box below, so you can download this, try it out yourself on your system. Next is the mobile application, right? The native Android mobile application built 100% with Jetpack Compose and Kotlin, right? So let me take you through the source code. This is a Android Studio, right? So I'll take you through the source code. Let's go through the libraries that we've used. The same thing, version catalog. We have different libraries with their versions here that I've used, right? I've made use of Google Fonts. I've made use of splash screen, extension icons to get extra icons. I've made use of Retrofit to connect to the server. I'm using Retrofit to intercept requests to the server and make sure that we attach the necessary headers, which is the access token, right? Then from Coin to the same way I have it on the server side to just manage my dependencies, right? Dependency injection there. Then navigation, I'm using type safe navigation from Jetpack library. Then view model to manage our state and business logic with the UI, right? Then data store. I'm using Timber to just log. Now, if you check Retrofit, we have four different libraries we need to import. So instead of having them differently, importing differently, it's better we just bundle them up here. So we can easily import this bundle, Retrofit, this and this too. So if we come back to the Android application, go to this build gradle.kt, and this is where we're having our libraries that I just show you. This way I'm implementing everything. You see we have splash screen, extension icons, we have navigation, view model, then we have data store, crypto. This is just to encrypt our uh, access and refresh token, because you don't want to save them plainly on your mobile application. You have to save them securely, right? They are making use of this coroutine, and then Timber. Now go back to the source code. You can see that I'm keeping it very clean. So I'm using clean architecture here, which is MVVM. Right, I've separated different packages. Different packages handles different feature of the application, right? So in case you want to scale this up later, you can easily scale it up to multi-module architecture. But this is just a simple architecture, but then I'm using MVVM, right? Because within every package, you can see that we have the presentation layer, we have the domain layer, we have the data layer too, right? Then we have the DI, which is a dependency injection for every feature. We have the core. The core is actually utility function that cut across every other module, right? Like your button, your text field. You don't want to start having them in different features, so you can easily import and get them from a single, more like a single source of truth, right? Then for networking, which is like one of the big deal about this whole demo, because it is this networking we are using to intercept requests going to the server to be sure that our token is there. Is this networking we are intercepting requests coming from response coming from server to be sure that it's not asking us to refresh our token, right? So we'll go through that. For that too, we have a presentation, we have design system. This is where we have our icon, then the theme, the light and dark theme, right? So we have this is straightforward. Then the home, which is the landing page. Then we have our main, this is where we have the only activity we have in this application, right? This is more like the entry point to our application. You can download this app, just go through it, try everything you need to try on it. This means to have a view model, and this is when you are getting a state flow of your system, user system information to check the latest theme that was set. You want to check if the user has already logged in, so you know how to switch to the home page. Now for navigation too, I said it that we're using type safe navigation, right? And I've added a little of what's it called, animation here, right? So we can animate when we are going from one screen to the other. So when you want to go from login to your registration page, it will just slide left. Then when you're coming in, it will slide right? So this is okay. Try that out too. Navigation, this is type safe, right? So just using this annotation to be sure that we are navigating the right way. Then this too, then we are good. Then the last one is system application. I added the system application because we need to configure our coin, right? To of our application, and this is how you have this. Then you call this under Android manifest file. This is the file that gives us information about everything about the application, right? Of course, we know manifest. Then we've added this because we're making use of internet, right? There's another thing I added. This use clear text traffic, because we're running on HTTP and not HTTPS. So this is fine. And we have our only main activity. Yeah, right, good. Then go back to networking. On networking, we have this particular package that handles interception, right? We can intercept all our requests going to the server to be sure that the right tokens are there, right? For the DI for this, right? You can see that we are using encrypted share preference just to be sure that we are not saving our token, access and refresh token in a plain format. So we are saving it in a encrypted format, right? So you can use this section manager to just manage our section information. Then we have user data. To user data, simply give us information about the current user, the username, if the user is logged in, and to set the theme, maybe light or dark theme or default theme, and to get the theme too. So that is fine. For the DI, for networking, you can see that we're implementing Retrofit here. We get the login interceptor, right? Then we get this particular API class. This is just a class that is designed to connect to our backend, and we'll need to use this annotation, right? For Retrofit, then we have the headers, then we have the response. The response is giving us just a data class which contain access token and refresh token. So if you come back to this place, we're implementing Retrofit here. So these are just functions. And now when you call them, automatically your DI, which is coin, knows where to get all these instances and make sure that you are getting them directly here. Because if you want to provide Retrofit now, it's asking for OK HTTP, and we have our OK HTTP here, right? And for interceptor too, this is where we're intercepting, right, to intercept our network. Ideally for this, you want to have something like apply for production, right, to be sure that it is only when you're on debug mode, build config.debug. It is only when you're on debug mode that you want to add this, right? Only when you're on debug mode, you add this. If not, then for release, you don't want to keep all those logs. No, not this. It's actually the log, right? It is the log, not the interceptor, because you always need to intercept. But for log, you really want to log when you are in debug mode. So for production, you want to have it this way. So you check that your build system is not the release one, it is the debug one. So we are good there. And this, since it's JSON, we use this converter. We've implemented this converter too. So this is straightforward. And for this is the class that intercept all requests going to the backend, right? So yeah, we need this token API service. This is a service that we can use to refresh our token, right? Now we've defined this with Retrofit, right? If we come back to the interceptor, the first thing that happens here is we get the request going to server, right? We check to be sure that it is not auth or you want to refresh token, right? If it's that case, then you just allow the request to go, right? That's why to be sure that it is not this, it is not this. Then you want to get your access token from session manager. For this, you can use drum blocking just to get a curating scope. This is okay because it is light. You can easily get this. It's not going to take time for you to get this from your preferences, right? Then you call this function to attach token as an header. If there's any other header, just remove it using this function. Then you want to attach the token to the header. If you come here, you can see that this is authorization. You attach it here, and to be sure, if you get 401, remember, we're only calling this function if it is not auth. If it is auth, like login, you are going to get 401 if your username or password is wrong, right? But for this, it is not auth. So if you are getting 401, it means your token has expired. What you just simply need to do now using Retrofit is to get the original request body, right? Then you try using this to get then you try to refresh your token here. We're using this synchronize block to be sure that you don't have multiple instances making use of this, right? So you close the initial request, then you try to refresh. If everything goes well, then you want to proceed. Now, when you try to proceed here now, then you are making use of the request that was called initially to proceed after you are sure that you've refreshed your token successfully. If not, then you just want to return the forbidden to the UI, and the UI will detect it to be now the UI will force the user to log in again, right? If not, if everything goes successful, then you want to proceed here. Don't forget, this is the original response that you save in case if this thing is not successful. So this refresh token, just calling the backend here too. You're adding your refresh token here, not access token. You call, everything goes well, you are fine. If not, you return null. And if this function detect null, it's only when it's not null, it will now proceed. Attach the new token because you are getting new token here. This is your new access token. And you can see from here too that when you get it successfully, the first thing you want to do is to save it to your section using section manager to save your token and be sure that your token is already on your system in case you want to make another request. Yeah, so this is straightforward. This go through different screen now. For login, when you go to login presentation layer, we have registration and we have login, right? Then for login, if you go to this screen, I think we have a preview there, so you can see what we have for the login. So when you preview it, you see that we have our login implementation here for UI. Then we have the view model too that manages the state and business logic. Everything, this is tied to login. For registration too, we should have our view model. You know, we're trying to keep it clean, and this is a very clean architecture. This is actually MVVM, right? So we have view model for register to registration screen. If you go to registration screen, you see that we have preview for these two, right? You can actually preview before we running it. So we have different composable component here for password components. This is also password. We have the button. These are customized buttons that we have under our core package, like I explained earlier, right? Then we have the user form component too, right? I don't want to start going into different details since you can download this application and try it out yourself, right? Then we have the state, just the state to manage everything that is on the UI, right? To manage the state, we are using under this space, we are using mutable state flow to just manage our state, right? And in case if anything changes, this view model will undo everything, manipulate it, and give us the right state of things on the UI, right? Now, as you can see, for every change on the state, we are checking everything we need to check if it can register, if we can register, right? It will check that your name is not empty, confirm that your password is the same thing as the second password you've repeated, right? So on event, this simply undo event coming from the UI, then the view model will undo it. Just that straightforward. If we go to this login view model now, you say login. Let me see the function login. This your function login now is making this request to our repository, right? And the repository is implemented under our data package, right? Because this is under domain. And for your package, data package, we're expecting for login, we're expecting the username and password, then the die code for the phone number too. If we come back to this place, can you see what we're doing? We're simply calling our backend with all the endpoint we've defined for the retrofit, with all the endpoint we've defined with retrofit, right? This auth API service. Can you see that I have an annotation here to authorize it, the user, right? We have another annotation here to register the user. Then we have an annotation here to auth me, right? Different endpoint that we are calling there. But before you can make use of call this endpoint, instead of calling those endpoints directly, it is better you call them with in a safe way so that when you are getting an exception, maybe when you try to connect, maybe the server is down or you don't have internet, right? You can safely check and return the appropriate message using this dynamic error handler. This dynamic error handler is just something I've defined here myself. And you can simply have under common, you can see that we are wrapping this under data results, right? In case when you make requests, you can have a request to be successful or you have requests that failed, right? So you can know the appropriate way to interact with the end user. Then if you run this, you already have this here running, so we can check the log to be sure that we are getting the right request and response from the server. So we'll run this and see the output for this. I think, did I mention, I think I've mentioned everything here. So we have the splash screen, right? And this should take us to maybe login, right? Then we can check the log here. Switch this to this connected hardware, right? If you try to do this, what do we have here? Now you can see token has expired. That's what we're getting from the server. You can see it's 403 calling the remote server here, right? And this is good. All right, so check the link, download the app and try it yourself on your system, right? Just get your local IP after you connect your system to the same network that your phone is connected to. Then you can get the IP and set the base URL here. Yeah, I'm using a different base URL because I'm connecting to a remote server. But you can set your URL here. Good. Thank you for watching. Enjoy the rest of your week. See you some other time.